At Christmas dinner, my mom laughed. If I'd known how much trouble 2 kids would be, I'd have taken those pills after your sister was born. Everyone laughed. I didn't. Months later, they forged my name for a loan and ended up begging me outside the cabin. They tried to steal. Hey, Reddit! My parents spent my whole life reminding me I was the extra one. So I walked away, built something real, and finally found peace. But turns out they weren't finished ruining things. Let me tell you how it all went down. Name's Jean M. Minor. I'm 36 and I work as a carpenter. I run a small workshop in town where I make custom furniture and fix things that people with money are too busy to fix themselves. It's not fancy, but I like it. Wood doesn't talk back, and when you build something right, it stays built. People don't always do that. I grew up in a family that looked perfect from the outside. Suburbs, big house, fake smiles. My mom Karen lived for appearances. My dad Paul just kept her happy. My sister Clara was the favorite, always has been. 2 years older, the standard. Clara's an influencer now, posting rented cars and filtered smiles. Mom calls it entrepreneurship. I call it lying for likes. She could wreck a car and Mom would hug her for surviving. I could build a table from scratch and Mom would ask if Clara could add color. I was the practice kid, the test run. Mom once said I made parenting look hard. I learned early that love in our house had rules. You had to perform. I wasn't loud or shiny enough for pictures. I liked fixing things, staying quiet. When I turned 20, I left, worked construction, saved, opened a small wood shop. No help, no support. Every holiday, Mom would still ask, "Still doing that wood thing?" Like it was just a phase she was waiting for me to fail out of. Meanwhile, Clara would brag about brand deals and new followers. I once checked her page. Half her posts were in front of rented Airbnbs. She'd act like she owned the place, and Mom would eat it up, calling her our little entrepreneur. Dad would just nod, pretending to understand what she was talking about. I only saw them a few times a year, usually around Christmas, because not showing up gave Mom another reason to talk about me. She'd tell relatives I was too busy or too distant, depending on what sounded better that year. Truth is, I went because my grandfather used to ask me to. He passed a few years ago, so now I go out of habit more than anything. The workshop's quiet most days. I play some old rock on a beat-up radio, sand down pieces, drink too much coffee. It's steady work and it keeps me sane. People come and go, ask for tables or cabinets, and I give them something solid that lasts longer than trends. That's more than I can say for family loyalty. Sometimes Marcus drops by. He runs a small repair shop down the road. He jokes I treat furniture better than people. He's not wrong. Last week, I finished a big commission for a local restaurant, solid walnut bar counter. When I delivered it, the owner told me, "You've got patience, ma'am." I laughed. Years of practice. Later that night, I was cleaning up the shop when my phone buzzed. Mom's name on the screen. The message read, "Don't forget Christmas dinner tomorrow. Dress nicely, please. We'll have guests." No, how are you? No, looking forward to seeing you. Just instructions, like I was a background actor in the annual family performance. I stared at the message for a second, wiped my hands on a rag, and muttered, "Guess they need someone to make Clara look perfect again." I put the phone down and went back to sanding a chair leg until the surface felt smooth enough to stop thinking. I pulled into my parents' driveway early. Snow still fresh on the ground. The house looked exactly like it always did in December. Too clean, too decorated, too fake. I had on decent jeans, a button-up, boots that weren't covered in sawdust. In my hand was a mahogany cigar box I'd built for my dad. Handcrafted, smooth finish, no flaws. If he noticed the work I put into it, great. If not, I'd survive. Inside smelled like candles and pride. My mom called from the kitchen without even looking at me. "Coat in the closet." Her tone was sharp enough to slice wood. A few relatives stood around the living room talking about traffic and recipes. My uncle gave me a nod, then asked if I was still doing the wood thing. "Yeah," I said. "Keeps people's tables from falling apart." He laughed, didn't get the edge behind it. Dad walked in from the den wearing a sweater that probably cost more than my truck payment. I handed him the box. He opened it, said, "Nice," and put it down. That was it. No eye contact. No, "Thanks, daughter." Then the door opened and the performance started. Clara walked in. Late, loud, dressed like a billboard. Perfume strong enough to drown out the food. Sorry, traffic was terrible, she said, even though she only lives 20 minutes away. Mom dropped the dish she was holding just to hug her. You look perfect, Mom said. That coat is beautiful. Thanks. It's Prada, Clara said, grinning. I muttered, Of course it is. Dinner started stiff. Every seat filled, but the air felt empty. The table looked expensive, plates matching, centerpiece glowing. Mom did introductions like she was hosting an event, bragging about Clara's incredible business growth and networking skills. I cut my food and kept quiet. My aunt asked, How's work, Jean? Before I could speak, Mom jumped in. Oh, she's still building furniture. You know, her little workshop. Little workshop? I said. Yeah, keeps the lights on. Mom smiled like she'd done me a favor mentioning it at all. When it came time for gifts, Dad picked up the cigar box again, ran his fingers over it. That's solid, he said, and set it on the mantel. No, thank you. Then Clara pulled out a stack of gift bags with shiny logos. I got everyone something small, she said, smiling like she was being humble. She handed out sponsored luxury watches. Everyone clapped. Mom actually clapped. You're such a giver, she said. Yeah, she's something, I said under my breath. Mom heard it. Don't be bitter, Jean, she said in that sharp tone she saves just for me. I looked up. Not bitter, Mom, just impressed how quickly fake generosity catches on. That got a few nervous laughs. Clara rolled her eyes. You could try being happy for someone else for once. I could, I said, but that'd be lying. Mom's eyes narrowed. You always have to ruin the mood, don't you? Guess the mood isn't built to last. The table went quiet. Dad cleared his throat. Let's just eat. We did for about 10 minutes. Then the conversation turned to success stories. Clara talked about upcoming brand deals and collabs. Mom couldn't stop smiling. Our daughter's building a future, she said. She's got drive. My aunt tried to be polite. And Jean, how's business? Good, I said. Upgraded from cheap wood to mid-range pine. A few people chuckled. Mom rolled her eyes like I'd embarrassed her in public. Clara laughed loud. That's cute, she said. Thanks, I said. I aim for cute. Doesn't pay much, but at least it's honest work. That one landed. Mom's smile cracked. Dad focused on his plate again. Then Mom said the line that froze the room. Honestly, if I'd known how much trouble 2 kids would be, I would have just taken those birth control pills after Clara. It wasn't even a whisper. Clear, cold, confident. She laughed after she said it like it was clever. Every fork stopped moving. My aunt looked down. My uncle shifted. Dad rubbed his temple. Clara's smirk twitched, but she didn't say a word. I stared at Mom. What did you just say? Oh, come on, she said, waving her hand. Don't be so dramatic. It's a joke. I laughed once. A joke? That's what you call that? Jean, don't start, Dad said softly. No, I said. Let's finish. Go on, Mom. Tell everyone how you wish I wasn't born. You're twisting my words, she said, defensive now. I don't think I need to twist anything, I said. You made your point clear. Jean, Dad said again, firmer. I turned to him. You going to back her up or just stare at your plate like always? He opened his mouth, closed it again. Silence. Clara finally spoke. You're overreacting. I laughed again. Yeah, you'd know a lot about pretending something's smaller than it is. Jean, Mom snapped. What? You said your piece. I'm saying mine. You're ruining Christmas, she said. I stood up, chair sliding back on the tile. No, I think I just stopped pretending it was one. I picked up my glass, raised it. To the one who shouldn't exist, but still showed up. Clara looked like she wanted to sink into her seat. Dad stayed frozen. Mom's face went pale, jaw tight. I finished my drink, set the glass down, and leaned on the table. You know, I used to think you ignored me because I wasn't enough, I said quietly. But now I see it's because you can't stand mirrors that don't flatter you. No one moved. I grabbed my jacket and keys, looked around once. Merry Christmas, I said, and walked out. Outside, the cold hit hard, but it felt clean. The snow was still falling, light and steady. I walked to my truck, started it, and sat there for a second. I could still see the glow of the house in my rearview mirror. Perfect lights, fake warmth. This time, though, I wasn't going back. The day after Christmas, I woke up late and didn't bother checking my phone. When I finally did, there were 15 missed calls, mostly from Mom, a few from Clara. I didn't listen to any of them. I went through my contacts, deleted every family number, blocked them all, and cleared my messages. The group chat went next. The second I hit delete, the silence felt heavier, but cleaner. I walked around my apartment for a while. The place was small, one bedroom above my shop, walls covered in dust, and framed pictures I didn't really look at anymore. One was from when Clara and I were kids, both in matching sweaters. I took it off the wall, stared for maybe 5 seconds, and dropped it in the trash. Then I grabbed a box and filled it with every leftover reminder. Cards, gifts, and that family forever mug Mom gave me one year as a joke. The box went straight to the dumpster. After that, I cleaned. Not the lazy kind of cleaning, the kind that makes the place look new. Floors scrubbed, shelves cleared, even fixed the crooked kitchen cabinet that had bugged me for months. It was like resetting the room and my head at the same time. That night, I cooked something simple, grilled chicken and plain rice. I sat on the couch. No TV, just quiet. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel angry. I just felt done. The next morning, I got up before sunrise and went straight to work. The shop was cold, breath showing in the air. I switched on the old space heater and got started. Orders were slow that week, but I had enough projects to stay busy. A few shelves for a local store, 2 dining tables for a couple moving into their first house. Days started to blend. Wake up, coffee, cut, sand, stain, repeat. It wasn't glamorous, but it worked. I liked the rhythm. Noise I controlled. Tools that listened. Sometimes Marcus dropped by with a box of screws in his usual attitude. He leaned on the doorframe, watching me sand down a tabletop. He stuck around for an hour, helped me carry some lumber inside, then left for his own shop. He's one of those guys who doesn't ask about things you don't bring up. That's why we get along. By the following weeks, the work picked up fast. A local restaurant wanted a full bar top. I spent 3 days just cutting the right slabs, getting the grain to line up. Every night, I'd lock up, walk upstairs, eat whatever I had, and crash. The noise of saws and sanders stuck in my ears even after I turned them off. I didn't mind. When I wasn't building, I started updating my website, taking new photos of my work, writing short descriptions. I'm not a marketing person, but I figured I'd let the pictures do the talking. Within a month, I started getting messages from new clients, people who wanted custom work, not factory junk. One night, Marcus stopped by again with pizza and 2 sodas. He sat on a stool watching me finish a table. "You've been on a roll lately," he said, "trying to stay busy." "Busy is good," he said. "But woman, take a break sometime. You've been in this shop more than the lights have." "Can't afford to stop," I said. "Feels weird when I do." He nodded, understanding without pushing. That's the thing about people like him. They get it. You don't fix the noise in your head by talking. You fix it by doing. By February, I had more orders than I could take. By February, I had more orders than I could take. A couple wanted a 10-person dining set. Another client needed a custom desk for her office. I worked 12-hour days, sometimes 14. I started getting compliments, real ones. People paid on time. Some came back for more. The shop looked better too. Cleaner, brighter, like it had more purpose. I'd upgraded my tools, repainted the walls, even added a little sign outside, minor woodworks. Nothing fancy, just black letters on metal, but it meant something. Sometimes late at night, I'd think about that Christmas dinner, but the thought never lasted long. Every time I picked up a saw or brushed stain on a surface, I felt a little further away from that table, from that family. It was like building distance out of wood and sweat. One Wednesday morning, I was halfway through cutting a slab of oak when my phone buzzed on the bench. Unknown number. I almost ignored it, but answered anyway, wiping sawdust off my hands. "Ms. Miner," a voice said. "Speaking. Who's this?" "This is James Cole from the firm Cole & Parker. I'm calling about your grandfather's estate. We need to set up a meeting." I frowned, grabbed a pencil, and scribbled the name down on a scrap of paper. "My grandfather's estate?" "Yes, ma'am. We'll need to go over a few details. Could you come by our office this week?" "Sure," I said. "What's this about?" I'll explain everything when you arrive, he said politely. We set a time for Friday morning. After I hung up, I stood there for a minute, staring at the phone. I didn't see my grandfather often. He lived hours away, but he never compared me to Clara. When we did talk, he was straightforward. He never looked disappointed when I talked about the shop. He used to tell me, if you can build something real, you'll never be empty. I wiped my hands on a rag and looked around the shop at everything I'd built. The drive to the lakeside town took 3 hours. The farther I got from the city, the quieter the roads became. Snow lined the shoulders like no one had touched it in weeks. When the GPS lost signal, I didn't bother fixing it. The place only had 2 streets and a post office. The law firm sat near the water in an old brick building with hand-painted signs and a bell on the door. Inside, a man in his 50s greeted me. Ms. Miner, I'm James Cole. Thanks for coming. His office smelled like old paper and coffee. He slid a folder across the desk. Your grandfather's estate has cleared probate. Everything settled. Boundary disputes held things up. Probate finally cleared. I didn't even know there was an estate, I said. He smiled faintly. Your grandfather kept things private. He left you his property in Ashridge, a cabin, a workshop, and the surrounding land. Just me? Just you, Cole said. His will was very specific. He wrote, Jean will know what to do with it. I hadn't seen my grandfather in years, not since I was in my 20s. He was the only one in the family who ever treated me like I mattered, the kind of man who'd slip you cookies when your mother said no. Cole handed me a set of brass keys with a tag that read Ashridge Cabin. The property's in good shape, but it's been empty a while. I signed the papers, thanked him, and left. The drive to the cabin took another half hour. It sat by a frozen lake surrounded by pines. The workshop next to it, wood siding gray, windows dusty, but whole. I parked, unlocked the door, and stepped inside. The smell hit first. Sawdust and oil, like the air still remembered him. Light broke through the curtains, landing on a half-finished chair covered in dust. Tools still hung neatly on the wall. It felt like time stopped, the day he walked out. I ran my hands along the benches, the wood scraps, the lathe still marked with stains. On one shelf was a small toolbox. Inside, taped to the lid, was a folded note written in shaky handwriting. Build something that lasts longer than pain. He was the only one who ever treated me like I wasn't a mistake. I read it twice, folded it back, and closed the box. That night, I slept on the old couch in the cabin. The windows creaked from the wind coming off the lake, but the quiet was real, the kind that doesn't need to be earned. The next morning, I started cleaning. I threw out old rags, swept until the floorboards showed, patched the roof, and fixed a sticking door. Every repair made it feel less like someone else's house and more like mine. After a few days, I fell into a rhythm. Wake early, light the fire, make coffee, and work. I repainted the workshop, fixed shelves, rebuilt the workbench. When I wasn't working, I sat outside by the lake, listening to the ice crack and shift. No cars, no people, no noise. A week later, Marcus showed up in his old truck. He stepped out, looked around, and whistled. So, this is what you've been hiding from me. Needed some peace, I said. We spent the day fixing a window and moving heavy cabinets. He cracked jokes the whole time. When we finally stopped, he leaned on the railing and looked at the lake. You're building your own kingdom out here. Nah, I said, just a place no one can ruin. He nodded. That's close enough. After he left, the place didn't feel empty. It felt steady. Over the next few weeks, word spread. A neighbor stopped by, asking if I could build a dining table for his wife. Then the cafe owner wanted shelves. Orders came in slow but steady. The cabin became home, one piece at a time. New curtains, fixed stairs, a bed frame I built myself. Every part of the place carried my grandfather's touch, his tools, his silence, his way of doing things right the first time. Sometimes I talked to him out loud while working like he was still there. When I built the Lang's table, I used one of his chisels. It cut cleaner than any new one I'd ever bought. By spring, the workshop looked new again. I rehung the same sign out here. The business grew naturally. Locals dropped by, asked for custom pieces, and paid without haggling. Work was steady, quiet, honest, the kind of peace that doesn't brag. One evening, I sat on the porch watching the sunset bleed over the lake. The air smelled like pine and sawdust. My hands were rough, my back sore, but I hadn't felt this calm in years. I thought about the note again. Build something that lasts longer than pain. Maybe it wasn't just about wood. Maybe it meant building a life that couldn't be broken by people who never built anything real. The wind off the water carried through the trees, soft and cold. I leaned back in the chair and said quietly, "The old man saw something in me they never did. Maybe that's enough." The snow around the cabin melted into patches of mud, and the air smelled like wet pine. Business was steady. The workshop stayed busy enough that I didn't notice weeks passing. I had orders lined up, money coming in, and a few locals who stopped by just to talk. For the first time in years, things actually made sense. Marcus came by most weekends to help with deliveries. He'd make fun of how organized I'd gotten. "Woman, you label everything now?" he said one Saturday, pointing at my tool rack. "Did you get possessed by a middle-aged mom?" "Helps me find things," I said, wiping sawdust off my arm. He smirked. "You just like pretending this is your kingdom." "Kingdom doesn't have taxes or people telling me to smile," I said. "Fair. Long live the carpenter queen." It was the kind of back and forth that made the workday go faster. No drama, no noise, just tools, sweat, and quiet. That peace lasted almost 2 months before the first crack showed up. Mom called one night. I almost ignored it, but habit won. Her voice was soft, syrupy in that way she used when she wanted something. "Jen, sweetheart, how are you?" "I'm fine," I said. "What's up?" "Well," she said, dragging the word out, "your father's car finally gave out. We've been thinking about getting something used, but the banks aren't too kind these days. You're doing so well, honey. We just need a little help to buy a new one." "I build furniture, Mom," I said, "not bailouts." "Oh, come on, don't be like that. Family helps family." "Yeah, I remember." Her tone hardened. "Don't get smart with me, Jean. I'm trying to talk to you." "You did," I said, and hung up. That was the end of it, or I thought it was. A few days later, I was cutting boards for a restaurant job when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I answered with a short, "Yeah?" "Ms. Minor," a man asked. "Speaking." "This is James Cole from Cole and Parker, your grandfather's estate lawyer." I turned off the saw. "Hey, Mr. Cole, everything all right?" "There's been a development," he said carefully. "A bank reached out to us about a loan application filed under your name." "What loan?" "That's what I wanted to ask you. It seems someone used the deed to your property in Ashridge as collateral. The application lists you as the borrower." I froze. "That's impossible. I didn't apply for anything." "I assumed so," he said. "But the signature matches the old documents from the inheritance. I'm sending a copy to your email. Take a look." I opened the message as soon as it hit my inbox. There it was. My name, address, and a signature that looked close enough to pass, but I knew my handwriting. It wasn't mine. The date listed was 2 weeks ago. Only a handful of people even had access to that paperwork, and 2 of them had called me. Family. "Mr. Cole," I said slowly, "what happens now?" "I'd advise you to come in tomorrow. This could qualify as identity fraud. You'll need to file a statement with the bank." "All right, I'll be there." When I hung up, I just stood there staring at the fake signature. My name looked small next to the numbers. They'd used the property as collateral for a loan big enough to buy a house. I didn't yell. I didn't break anything. I just felt tired. The next morning, I drove into town. Cole met me with a folder of papers. He laid them out on his desk. "You'll need to sign here to confirm these aren't your documents," he said. "We'll file an official fraud report." "How serious is this?" I asked. "Serious enough. Using someone else's property as collateral is a federal issue. Whoever did this could face criminal charges." He didn't have to say who. I already knew. I signed the forms one by one. Each pen stroke felt heavier than it should have. Cole slid a copy back to me for records. "We'll take it from here, Ms. Minor. You'll get updates as soon as we hear back from the bank." "Thanks," I said. Outside, the sky was gray and low. The air smelled like rain. I stood by my truck for a while before getting in. I didn't feel anger yet, just something quiet, like a splinter too deep to pull out. Back at the cabin, I went straight to work, sanded down a tabletop until my arms burned. It didn't fix anything, but it stopped me from thinking. Around 9 that night, my phone buzzed again. Voicemail. Blocked numbers still dump messages in there. Mom's voice. "Honey, it's your mother. There's been a little mix-up with the bank. Call us back, okay? It's not what you think." I listened once, then deleted it. "They stole my name like it meant nothing," I said quietly to the empty room. "Guess that's all I ever was to them, a signature." It took about 3 weeks for the storm to roll in. Mr. Cole called first thing one morning while I was cutting planks for a table order. His voice was calm, but the kind of calm that comes before bad news. "Ms. Minor, just a heads up. Your fraud claim triggered a full audit on the other accounts tied to that loan. The bank's compliance team is digging deeper. I wiped sawdust off my hands. How deep? Deep enough to find a few skeletons, he said. They built everything on paper, and now the paper's on fire. I didn't say much, just thanked him and went back to work. The sander drowned out the rest of the world. A few days later, Cole called again. The audit uncovered other irregularities. Your parents forged income statements, fake asset claims, unpaid taxes, you name it. The investigation's widening. I leaned on the workbench and exhaled. Figures. They always liked shortcuts. He sighed. I know this isn't easy, but you did the right thing filing that report. It's protecting you. I wasn't trying to burn them, I said. Just didn't want them using my name to dig another hole. That's how fires start, he said quietly. After that, I stuck to my normal routine. Work, eat, sleep. Still, something felt different, like a splinter under the skin of every quiet day. I caught myself checking my phone more often, waiting for another call. Marcus showed up one afternoon with coffee and a box of screws. He watched me plane down a board, then leaned on the door frame. You're quieter than usual, he said. That's saying something. Just watching things break themselves, I said. He nodded slowly. They finally catching up to their own lies? Something like that. Good, he said. You've done enough bleeding for those people. A week later, the fallout hit the surface. Small-town gossip doesn't take long to spread. The local paper printed a short legal notice. Forgery investigation involving Paul and Karen Miner in connection with property in Ashridge. It didn't say much, but in a town that thrives on whispers, it didn't need to. By the next morning, everyone was talking. My phone lit up with messages from old co-workers and neighbors asking, "Hey, are they really in trouble?" I ignored them all. Then Cole called again. Their accounts are being reviewed. The bank froze everything temporarily. It's standard procedure. What about my name? Cleared, he said. You're in the clear officially. Good. Dad's company suspended him the same week. Someone leaked that the audit linked back to financial misconduct. Mom lost her top 2 clients within days after her name appeared in the paper. The silence from them didn't last long. Thursday night, my phone rang. Unknown number. It was Clara. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. Her voice cracked the second I said hello. Jeanne, it's bad. Real bad. I know, I said. She sniffled. They made me give them your old paperwork. You left copies of your tax files and the will packet at Mom's after Grandpa's service. They said the bank just needed them for verifications. I didn't know they'd use it for that. I kept my tone flat. You always say that, right after they do something unforgivable. She started crying harder. I swear I didn't. I just thought... Stop, I said. You thought it would make things easier for them, like always. There was a pause, just the sound of her breathing unevenly. Everything's falling apart, she said. Mom's freaking out. Dad's talking to lawyers. My sponsors dropped me. People online are calling me a scammer because of them. I didn't say anything for a while. Then, now you know what it's like when people see who you really are. That shut her up. She didn't hang up, though. She just cried quietly. When she finally spoke, her voice was small. I'm sorry, Jeanne, for everything. I mean it. I know, I said, but that doesn't fix it. I know, she whispered. I just needed to say it. Neither of us spoke after that. I let the silence stretch, then ended the call. I didn't block her this time. 2 days later, Cole called again. Everything's wrapped up, Ms. Miner. The investigation's done. Your name's clean, your ownership's protected. The bank will move forward with charges against the other parties. You mean my parents? I said. He hesitated. Yes, but for now, they're just under review. That night, I got a text from Mom. The message was short. You ruined us. I stared at it for a minute, then typed back. You did that when you forged my life on paper. No reply came. The next morning, I opened the shop early. The air was cold and sharp. I worked all day, sanding, cutting, assembling. The smell of cedar filled the place. Every strike of the hammer felt cleaner than the last. When the sun dipped below the trees, I walked outside and leaned against the porch railing. The lake reflected the sky, calm and gray. They always wanted to teach me lessons, I said quietly. This time, I let life do the teaching. The wind off the water was cold, but it felt good, real, like the start of something that didn't need anyone's permission to exist. The snow around the cabin was gone, and the lake had turned back to glass. Orders kept rolling in. Custom tables, cabinets, even a few full kitchen sets. I was booked solid for months. something I never thought would happen. The workshop stayed busy from sunrise to dusk, and for a while, everything felt still. Then one evening, my phone buzzed. It was Clara. I stared at her name for a moment before answering. Her voice was thin, worn out. "They lost the house," she said quietly. "They're staying in a motel off Route 19. "Does she want to see me?" I asked. "Or my wallet?" There was silence. "Then both, probably." I sighed. "Then she's wasting her gas." "She's desperate, Jean. They both are. Dad barely leaves the room anymore." "Actions have consequences," I said. "Tell her that." Clara didn't argue, just whispered, "I'll tell her," and hung up. That night, the sky was black with clouds and the lake looked like steel. Around 9, headlights cut through the trees. I watched from the porch as a silver sedan crawled up the dirt road. It stopped at the gate, engine idling. I knew that car. Mom got out first, bundled in a coat that looked too thin for the cold. Dad followed, slower, heavier. They stood there for a moment, then walked up the path. I stepped outside before they could knock, arms crossed, calm. Mom smiled, like she was meeting a stranger she wanted something from. "You've done so well for yourself," she said. "We're proud of you." "Proud people don't forge signatures," I said. Her smile twitched. "We made a mistake, Jean. We just need a little help to fix things until our accounts are released." Dad muttered, "It's not as bad as it sounds." I shook my head. "You tried to use me like a credit card. Now it's declined." Mom's voice cracked, frustration slipping through the sweetness. "We're your parents. You'd be nothing without us." "You're right," I said. "I'd be nothing. That's what you kept telling me. Look how that turned out." She started crying, the kind of cry that was half performance, half anger. "You can't just stand there and watch us fall apart." "Sure I can," I said. "I've had practice." Dad stared at the ground, hands buried in his coat pockets. He didn't defend her, didn't say much at all. I took a step forward. "You've taken enough from me. Find another mistake to clean up." Mom tried to speak again, but her voice broke. She turned away, grabbing Dad's arm. They walked back to the car, heads low. The taillights disappeared into the trees. I stayed on the porch until the sound of the engine faded completely. Hours later, I was still awake when I heard another car, lighter, slower. I opened the door and saw Clara standing there holding an envelope. No makeup, no camera, no perfect smile, just tired eyes. "I didn't call first," she said. "I figured you wouldn't pick up anyway." "You figured right." She managed a weak smile. "Can I come in for a minute?" I nodded. She stepped inside, looking around the workshop like she hadn't seen a real home in years. She handed me the envelope. "It's from Grandpa. The letter meant for Mom and Dad. I read it." I hesitated, then opened it. The handwriting was shaky, but clear. "To my son and his wife, I left it to Jean because she earned it through honesty, not inheritance. Love isn't ownership." I folded it carefully and set it on the table. Clara's voice was low. "He knew what kind of people they were. I didn't want to believe it, but he did." "You sound surprised," I said. "I guess I am. I always thought he was being unfair. Now I get it." She rubbed her arms like she was cold. "I don't want money, Jean. I just want a clean slate." I poured 2 mugs of coffee and handed her one. "You're not them," I said. "Don't spend your life proving it." She looked down at her cup, nodded. "Thanks." We sat there for a few quiet minutes. When she stood to leave, the sky was starting to lighten through the window. She turned at the door. "You really built something good here." "I had a good teacher," I said. She smiled faintly and walked out into the gray morning. After she left, I stepped out onto the porch. The lake reflected the first orange streaks of sunrise. The air was cold but clean. For once, there was nothing left to fix. My phone buzzed on the table behind me. "Mr. Cole," I answered. "Morning, Ms. Miner," he said. "One last update. Your grandfather's will had a final clause, a charitable remainder provision. When you're gone, the property turns into a woodworking school for kids in foster care." I smiled. The old man thought of everything. "He did," Cole said softly. "Take care of yourself, Jean." After the call, I stood there for a while, watching light spread across the water. "They spent their lives chasing image," I said quietly. "I built something that'll outlive all of us." The sun rose higher, turning the lake gold. I took a deep breath, feeling the air move through me. Peace didn't feel like winning. It just felt like not carrying their weight anymore. Peace doesn't come when they stop hurting you. It comes when you stop letting them.